What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Injection of Inspiration, where every single Saturday I, Graham G.S. Matthews, inject you with a daily dose of motivational advice, helpful tips, and all that other great positive shit. This is less of my usual injection of inspiration approach than it is more of like a story having to do with jury duty of all things, which I believe we would all have to go through at one point or another if you live here in the States. It seems like it's only inevitable. And at only, 22 now? At only 19 years old, I had my first jury duty experience of sorts, I guess. So, at the time, I had been, writing for my school newspaper up at college. So, I technically had a job in Massachusetts. And if you're over 18, and if you're working, then you're eligible for jury duty, or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but since I technically had a job and was getting paid and all this other stuff where I go to school in Massachusetts, I was eligible for jury duty. And I found that out at the onset of 2015, immediately upon returning to campus. And I was like, fuck, this is really something I don't want to do. It's during the week. I have class, blah, blah, blah. Making up all these excuses as to why, in my mind, as to why I shouldn't do it or can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But it's an obligation. It's a legal obligation to do jury duty. So I'm like, I'm going to have to fucking do it. And the day's slowly creeping up on me. It's one of those things where it feels so far away and you know it's coming, but you don't want to think about it. Ever have that experience? That's what that was like for me. I knew that it was coming up almost exactly 3 years ago. Today, around this time 3 years ago. I know it was in April of 2015. Late April of 2015. I knew it was coming up. I didn't really want to think about it or how I was going to approach it or deal with it, and I'm talking to people who live in the area. Shout out to @Zach Donegan on the Twitter machine. He was giving me some heads up and tips as to how I can make it from point A to point B. And this is before I was using Uber. That wouldn't be another experience involving Zach, which I shared about a year ago. That would not be until 2016. So I wasn't using Uber. I had barely used the transportation around my school around that point. I'd used the train maybe once to go to Salem, Massachusetts a few times. Maybe once or twice, so I wasn't really familiar with that. I didn't know what the train times were, how I was going to get to the courthouse, how far it was from the train station, if I would have to walk. And I tried calling up like, hey, I don't have a car, does that excuse me? And they said, no, doesn't matter if you have class, blah, blah, blah. So I was able to get out of class, and that worked out fine. So that really wasn't an issue. I was able to get there. I had to wake up super, super, super early. But you can't go into something like jury duty dreading it. Because if you do, you're bound to be fucking miserable. I mean, that goes with really anything, but especially when it comes to jury duty. You know going in it's going to be boring or terrible. And I was thinking about that in the weeks preceding it, but it really wasn't until the night before where I'm like, you know what, this could actually be kind of cool. Okay, maybe not taking time out of my day to go do this and sitting in a courthouse for a few hours. Maybe that's not so cool. But I rewatched an episode of Monk, that old show Tony Shalhoub that aired on the USA Network many, many years ago. There was one episode of that show that had him doing jury duty, and obviously it was some big mystery and a big murderer and all this other stuff. Obviously that would not be the case with me, but it got me kind of excited, I'm going to be partaking on a jury duty, and you have to look at the bright side of really anything. And I knew I had to wake up earlier than I had ever woken up in probably my entire life, for the most part. I had to wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock to get showered, get ready, and take a taxi from my school to the train station, take the train to the courthouse, and get there by 8 o'clock. And it wasn't that, it was close to my school, but not too close. But anyway, so I'm thinking shit, I don't really want to do this. But like I said, the night before, I really kind of got into it. I didn't go to bed until super late. I was going to hopefully go to bed earlier, but I didn't until 1 o'clock. So I only got a few hours of sleep. But I looked at the bright side. I stayed positive. And it really wasn't as bad as I thought it would. And I strongly believe that because of my positive attitude going into this experience, that was what led to what happened next. So I get there. I take the taxi. I take the train. I find out that the courthouse is right next to the train station. I took a taxi there anyway, so I wasted $5 on that when I really could have just walked. But nonetheless, I get there, check in, blah, 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 do the security shit, all that other stuff. And I find out upon getting there that, they have to take attendance and do all this and that, and you watch a few videos. And I was waiting there for maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, just watching stuff on my phone and reading stuff on my phone, blah, blah, blah. And then I come to find out they don't even need us. There was no case that went to court that day. So, and I'm thinking, again, if you're looking on the negative side, if you're looking on the flip side of the bright side, you're thinking, oh, what a waste of my time. Why did I wake up early for this shit? What a waste of my fucking time. Why did I drive all the way out here for blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, wow, cool, I don't have to do jury duty. I don't have to do jury duty. That's a tongue twister. Jury duty today after all. I could just go back and work on homework. And that was another concern of mine too, because the next day, this was on like a Wednesday, on the Thursday, I had like 2 big projects due. One for one class, one big PowerPoint presentation, as Drew Gulak would say from 205 Live. And then I had another, like a giant-ass 10-page paper due for my, like, government class, ironically enough. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be terrible. I have to come back and do all that shit. But no, I got back, like, within a decent amount of time, around, like, noon, ate lunch real quick, and worked on the projects until nighttime, until, like, NXT came on, and it worked out perfectly. I don't think I went to my afternoon class, because I had previously told my teacher I wouldn't be there because of jury duty. So I didn't go to class that afternoon. I used that time to work on my projects, and it worked out wonderfully. It ended up being one of the best days that entire semester, solely because of that. And it worked out just amazingly, amazingly well. So again, I mean, obviously that won't always be the case where you go to jury duty and no cases go to court and you don't have to stay there, blah, blah, blah. And in some cases, you might have to come back, and it's a whole headache. But again, if you go into it thinking positive, you never know what might happen. So that really goes with any experience I share here on the show, but I wanted to share that experience specifically because it did happen roughly 3 years ago. So if you're saddled with jury duty, if you're saddled with something you really, really don't want to do, and it's also coming up quick, and you know it's coming, like it's on the calendar, but it might not be for another month or two, but you really don't want to have to experience it or go through it, it's not that bad. Don't dread it. If you dread it, you're going to be miserable, you're going to be negative, and that's also going to affect the other people around you, which is also a big no-no. Try to avoid that at all costs if you can. Try to stay positive. It rubs off on other people, and the experience might not be quite as bad as you probably envisioned it being if you just think positive. So anyway, guys, thank you for checking out the show here today. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. I'll be back next Saturday with another all-new installment of Injection of Inspiration. Until then, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.